69.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Breanna. Happy birthday to you.
Did I do it?
Okay, go ahead.
Do I make a wish? No.
Sure.
Too late.
Alright. Yeah, you can turn one of the lights back on.
That's what you did to me.
Turn the kitchen light back on.
I'm the co-founder and president of Have Faith Be Strong, a nonprofit organization which is started in honor of Breanna and Jalen Thayer, two of my children who both lost their lives to brain cancer. Topic 1, how I heard about my son and my daughter's diagnosis, what the doctors told us, and how the rest of the family took it. The way I found out about my daughter's diagnosis was in mid-January one day. She showed her dad that these 3 fingers on her right hand were moving like this, and she said, "Daddy, my fingers are moving by themselves." So that was her only symptom. We kept our eyes on it. We brought her to the doctor a couple weeks later for her 3-year checkup, and the doctor saw her fingers twitching. They would even twitch around the clock even when she was sleeping. The doctor told us, that wasn't normal. He said that she needs to see a neurologist, and so that was the next step with Breanna. So we went to the neurologist appointment, and the neurologist checked her out, did his physical exam, everything that they do, gave her a diagnosis of a rare form of epilepsy, and put her on Depakote. And because she did have an EEG in between the general ped doctor and seeing the neurologist, and the EEG was abnormal. So again, he said it was a rare form of epilepsy, and put her on Depakote. He did say we will do an MRI down the line, but I don't think we'll find anything. So Breanna and I left the doctor's office, and she was taking Depakote for just about a week, and I didn't see any improvement. And I understand that, sometimes medication takes time to work, but I just didn't feel comfortable about what was going on with my daughter. I didn't feel comfortable with the diagnosis. I started doing research on epilepsy and causes of epilepsy, etc., and was finding not, information that was very scary. So the causes of some of these things, this type of thing that was happening to her, would say sometimes tumors and etc., and I just had a very bad feeling about it. So I contacted the doctor's office, and I asked them to please push up the MRI scheduling or the procedure for that. And I found out that to have an outpatient MRI, it would be 3 months of a wait. And so I basically demanded that they put her in the hospital sooner so that she could have the MRI, because I really felt like there was something wrong. I didn't know what, but I didn't agree with a rare form of epilepsy diagnosis, and she wasn't getting any better. So they put her in the hospital. They were not kind at the hospital. In fact, an intake nurse asked me when she was doing the intake, "Oh, why are you here? Why are you guys here? What brings Breanna in?" And I told her that she's here for an MRI because of her fingers are twitching. And the nurse's response was very rude, and she just looked at me and said, "People wait for these." So nonetheless, I just kept answering her questions, and that evening, the doctor, not who saw her originally, his partner came in, because he was the one who was working at the time, came in and said, we'll we are going to do the MRI tomorrow morning. We don't think we're going to find anything. We're really just doing this to ease your mind, etc. So she had her MRI the next morning, but they sedated her. But by the time the test was to begin, she woke up. So they were going to send her home. And there's another story that goes along with this. It's very long, so I will just cut to the part where she did get the MRI. And while she was in the MRI, she didn't get it that day, but we came back. She had her MRI, and she had a golf ball sized tumor. No, it was a tennis ball sized tumor on the left side of her brain, touching her motor strip, hence the right 3 fingers going like this. So that's how we found out about Breanna's tumor. She had surgery 2 days later. The morning of her surgery, she liked to suck her thumb. So the morning of her surgery, she was trying to suck her thumb, and her whole arm was like involuntarily coming out of her mouth. So obviously things were getting worse, and it was starting to affect more of her body on the right hand side. She had surgery that morning, and the neurosurgeon came out. He didn't have good news, he didn't have bad news. They never really tell you exactly what's going on. He probably didn't know, but had a gut feeling. But he came out and said the frozen sample had a lot of cells, and obviously that wasn't a good thing. So then 2 days after that, on April 9th, 2004, April 9th, 2004, we found out that, she was diagnosed with medulloblastoma, PNET, cancer. So that's how we found out about Breanna and her tumor. And the family's reaction to Breanna's cancer was obviously devastation, worry. What do we do? What's going to happen? Is she going to survive? Obviously, as the mom and the dad, those were our main concerns. Just shock, dismay. Oh my goodness, why? What's going on? Just complete everything under the sun. We did tell her brothers, so her younger brother was a baby, so he didn't really understand. He spent a lot of time in the hospital when she was going through treatment, but he still doesn't really understand and doesn't remember playing with her and things of that nature, because ultimately she did pass away, and he was only 18 months. Well, he was 18 months when she was diagnosed, but he doesn't remember many of the things that occurred when she went through treatment and even after she passed away. Jalen and Bailey were older, so what they understood was that she was really sick. They knew that she could possibly die, but I don't know to the degree of their true understanding of what was going on. I mean, when Breanna was going through treatment, they would come home from school. We would stand at the door. They'd, take off their school shirts, go to the sink right away, wash their hands. We did a lot of sanitary practices around the house and things like that. So they knew the seriousness of the disease, but I don't know how much they really understood about it. But overall, everybody was shocked and worried and etc. Jalen, how did we find out about Jalen's diagnosis? Well, Jalen started having headaches July 4th, 2009, like around that time. So that would have been almost just over 2 weeks before Breanna's 5th year anniversary of her passing. So July is a really difficult month for us. in general. And so is April, for obvious reasons that may come up later, because Jalen passed in April. And Breanna had her diagnosis surgery in April. Different years, obviously, but April and July are intense months for us. So Jalen started having headaches around beginning of July 2009. Headaches, trouble sleeping. So he'd wake up in the middle of the night saying, "Mom, my head feels like it's racing," and he would walk back and forth in the hallway and just be uncomfortable. And I'd give him ibuprofen, and I gave him codeine, and still just trouble sleeping and just headaches, bad headaches. So this went on, and we took him to the doctor, and the same doctor, same pediatrician, said, well, he has a head virus. This is what they diagnosed him with initially. And we took him home. So this went on for a week and a half, but then Jalen started throwing up. So I remember calling the pediatrician's office one day, and they said, bring him to the emergency room. He's throwing up, his headaches, nothing's changed, bring him to the emergency room. So that's what we did. Same hospital that Breanna had her surgery at, but in the emergency room. My husband brought him in. I wasn't there at the time. I showed up about an hour and a half later. They talked to Jalen, didn't really do much. I'm not sure if they knew the family history. I don't think they did initially until I got there. And when I got there, the doctor was asking, Jalen, hey, how are you feeling? Are you ready to go home? And I intervened. I also had a very bad feeling about what was going on, but I did not think that it was cancer. So I told the doctor, no, you can't send him home. Nothing's changed. He doesn't feel better. He doesn't look good. You need to do something more. You need to do a scan or something. And he gave me a hard time and said, we certainly don't do MRIs. We don't just do an MRI. And I just kept pushing. I said, well, he's not going home. We don't have a reason for why he's having headaches and a racing brain. And so more needs to be done. And so he said, okay, we'll do a CAT scan just to ease your mind. And they did a CAT scan, and he came back and told Jalen and Lance, his dad, and myself, the three of us were there at the time, that there was something large in Jalen's brain. It was very large, tennis ball size as well. It's either a brain infection or a tumor. Obviously, he wasn't going to go home. And I think our too difficult to explain really how we felt, but I do remember that Jalen, having heard this information, the first thing he said to Lance and myself was that we didn't deserve to go through this again. So that's the kind of person Jalen was. That's what he said. That's what he said to his dad and I. And then we all hugged and we cried together. When we found out what it was and the type of cancer, which was glioblastoma multiforme, I remember them telling me after his surgery, and after when the pathology reports came back, we had been waiting outside the ICU at the time when the reports came back, and I remember them telling me, and I just basically started screaming and just fell to my knees because they told us that Jalen would have less than a 2% chance of living 5 years, up to 5 years. And oh my gosh, we felt hopeless, didn't know what to do. Bailey started crying, Sammy started crying. Bailey really understood at this point. He already lost his sister. Jalen's only 17 months older than him. The worst information in the world they could receive, we could receive as parents.